Hello. Welcome back to Historia.
I'm Kylie.
I'm Jamie. And this week, I have an interesting topic.
Oh.
I also did a person.
No way.
Yes way.
Stop. How exciting. These are my favorite episodes. I love a biography. An autobiography.
I don't really talk about people, I feel like.
Yeah, no, you don't.
Like, every now and
Besides, like, Egypt.
I can't help myself with ancient Egypt. I love it so much.
Yeah.
It's so entertaining.
It is entertaining.
It's very interesting. I think, yeah, and like most of the people that, I don't know if I think I've only covered like a few people in the U.S.
Yeah.
I tend to do more European,
Uh-huh.
which I'm doing again today.
Oh. Okay.
So they are known throughout the world and have made quite the impression to this day. Like everybody knows him.
Oh.
We have,
Okay.
yeah. So we've even discussed one of their creations on this podcast.
Is it an artist?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh. A musician?
I mean, he's kind of an artist, but also many of talents. Do you want to know who it is?
Yeah.
Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh yeah.
Da Vinci.
We didn't talk about him?
No, we just talked about the Mona Lisa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, how it was stolen.
Oh, and we talked about Vincent van Gogh. Okay.
Yeah, Van Gogh. So,
Okay.
Da
Cool.
Vinci, yeah, so Da Vinci, I guess he kind of fits into the artist
Yeah.
category, but he's also a lot more than just an artist.
Oh yeah, he's talented. Mm-hmm. That's the only thing I know about him is he has lots of talents.
Lots of talents. So before I dive into the man of many talents, let me go over where I pulled my information from. So a really helpful website was the Museum of Science website. It focused primarily on Da Vinci and many of his achievements in life between his artwork, his blueprints that he created, drafts, and the science he focused on in life, because this dude was literally all over the place. He did everything. Mm-hmm. I also pulled information from the leonardodavinci.org website that structured his life pretty well, because I feel like the other website really focused on like his later in life and like his achievements and stuff. This one really covered like the nitty-gritty stuff of just like his personal life. So I thought both of those combined really helped kind of structure. There's still so much more to know about Leonardo da Vinci, because he did have a very like ongoing life until his death, but there's also still a lot of unknown and a lot of stuff that I probably didn't cover that I'm sure there are plenty of documentaries you can watch on him.
Oh yeah, sure.
So I'm just going to go over what I can in this time frame that
Cool.
I will do.
Awesome.
So on April 15th, 1452, in the town just outside of Florence called Vinci, a child would be born. The parents would be a young Florentine notary named Messer Pier Frusino de Antonio da Vinci and a peasant named Caterina. Together, Caterina would give birth to their illegitimate son.
I'm sorry, her name is just one name and then his was like 20.
Supposedly, she was a slave.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense.
Or a maid, give or take, like in the household.
Okay, that makes more sense.
And I believe Da Vinci has a couple of other brothers. As I was doing my research, I saw that he mentioned, like in the end, like when he's pretty much like willing his like possessions to like people and stuff that he knew throughout his life, I believe he gave some land to his brothers. But I didn't find like who his brothers were, but I'm sure they're from the legitimate wife of his father. It's a lot to unfold, but I mean, it is what it is.
Yep.
So his name would be Leonardo de Pierre da Vinci. Shockingly, for this time, Leonardo's father did not disown him, did not see him as a illegitimate son, but actually obtained custody of him and raised him with Da Vinci's grandfather and uncle.
Oh.
Over time. I don't think he stayed in the household for the first few years of his life. I think he was staying with his grandfather.
Okay.
But then I think he's joined the rest of the family when he got a little bit like older, but like his father pretty much knew him or like raised him.
Okay.
So that's very rare in this time frame, especially in the 1400s. There is not much known about Da Vinci's younger years, but it was evident that at a young age he had the gift of paint. Painting ran in the family and was highly encouraged. So constantly he was drawing, drafting, painting, like as a young child, like that's what he was doing.
I think that'd be such a fun thing to watch your kid do.
Yeah.
Because it's, especially nowadays, like, if you're painting, like, that's so cool.
And he was a very imaginative, very creative, very curious kid, especially with nature. He really loved just kind of observing nature and seeing how, like, everything functioned, how everything worked, why he always questioned, why does this work the way that it does?
Yeah.
And then he drafts of just like possibilities of how something could be. Like he would look at a bird and be like, how does this fly? And so he would come up with like these ideas of like, of machines and contraptions of like something that could fly so he could be like a bird and fly.
Oh, cool.
In a sense. But he's a very interesting man. But like he definitely was that kind of like imaginative kid.
I love that.
He had quite a talent too to go along with it, especially because the rest of his family were very encouraging of it.
Yeah.
So Da Vinci also had access to scholarly texts through his younger years, which was high proof of where he gained his interest in not only the arts, but also in sciences, which is crazy for this time because religion is huge at this point of time in the Renaissance. So having this like curiosity of science and stuff, it was still very new and people were very like touchy about it because they're like, you probably shouldn't be doing this,
right?
But he was very like inquisitive and very just like curious about it, of just like, I want to know more. And I think like definitely having that access to scholarly texts definitely built a foundation for that. So in 1466, when Da Vinci was around the age of 15, his father decided that Leonardo's talent needed to start to be shared. And what better way to put his talent to the test than to be an apprentice? This was huge at the time. Like that, if you wanted to be something, you had to be an apprentice first. And you would be an apprentice for years, if not pretty much almost your entire like work that you do. Like your entire life, you might be an apprentice. It's crazy. So Da Vinci would start his apprenticeship with one of the most renowned workshops of the time, and that was with the artist Verrocchio. Verrocchio at this time was a famous artist of the Renaissance and in Florence particularly. Very big. Da Vinci would learn a lot of his skills during his workshop. He would go on to learn drafting, metalworking, chemistry, drawing, painting, sculpting, mechanics, etc. He was learning a lot. So he also learned humanities, science, and art during this time. So he was anything he could learn, he was going to learn it. He wanted to know more. And I think they all kind of like interconnect with each other of just like, okay, with art, you have to figure out, okay, what can I do to make like these images pop and like the color abstracts and stuff like that. And then with science of just like drafting what he's creating, like
how
and
do
stuff
things
like that.
Work,
yeah,
so that he knows how to create them. Same
Same with sculpture. I mean, like you have to figure out which is the best material to use, how to craft it properly,
what it would actually look like.
It's a whole thing. It's crazy. So Verrocchio, with many of his paintings, would actually include other artists, and Da Vinci was one of them. So he would paint like a good chunk of the portrait of whatever painting he was doing, but he also had like his apprentices help him with certain aspects of the painting too, like certain like characters or like different people represented, because during the Renaissance, I love Renaissance art. I think it's absolutely breathtaking. It's a lot of it's very religious, but also very just like, it gives these realistic, lifelike looks to people. It's very detailed. It's gorgeous. I love it. And Da Vinci was he was already showing his talent, and Verrocchio decided, he was like, hey, I want you to help me out. So in Verrocchio's Baptism of Christ painting, Da Vinci would paint the angel that was holding Jesus's robe. This angel demonstrated the amount of skill that Da Vinci had to Verrocchio. So this angel like caught everybody's eye. They're like, dude, this is really good. Like, this is very detailed. It looks so realistic. Like, it's amazing. How did you do this? And there was even a rumor that because of the young Da Vinci's talent, and after he painted the angel for Verrocchio, that Verrocchio would never hold a paintbrush again.
Wow.
Like, this was, I think he still worked with him and stuff like that, but like Verrocchio was like, this guy has way too much talent. Like, he's
He's like, you just do it.
He's like, you're gonna become more famous than me by far.
I love that he was just like, nah, I'm done.
Yeah, pretty much.
I'll let you do it.
So during this time workshopping with Verrocchio, Da Vinci would continue his ventures outside of the art world and into the science and medicine universe. So at age 20 in 1472, Da Vinci would be qualified in the Mass Guild of St. Luke for Arts and Medicine. His father would go on to set up his own workshop to focus on what he wanted to do, but he would still go on to help Verrocchio with like anything. So he was like doing his own thing, but also helping him out, because I think they had like a really good relationship or rapport that they worked well with one another. So he was like, yeah, man, like my dad's helping me set up like a future that I want for myself, but like I'm also going to help you out because I'm only 20.
Yeah.
So part of his known earliest works that we can assume was of Da Vinci was in 1473, an ink and pen that was the Arno Valley. So Da Vinci would continue to work with Verrocchio, and a rumor during this time would start to spread.
Oh.
He was already getting tea, and he was very young. He was 23 at this time. So found in court records that they have found, in 1476, Da Vinci and 3 other men were charged with the accusation in like homosexual acts.
Oh.
Yeah, so they were arrested for this. And in this time of history, for people to know that sex was primarily used for like procreating.
Right.
And for like Italian culture, like homosexuality was not
It was frowned upon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Greece and stuff, they were more open to the idea, because if you look at ancient Greece, like that was like a foundation. Like you literally got married to procreate, pretty much. And that was like kind of the same like expectations. So having this like anything outside of just like the standard, it was a big no. So
of course it made people more curious and wanting to try it.
So I did a little digging I ran into a website called nicofranz.net website to understand more about this side of Da Vinci, because the 2 websites that I looked primarily at didn't really dive into his like personal like relationships.
Yeah.
They kind of bypassed it and focused primarily on like his career.
Okay. Yeah.
So this one kind of digs a little deeper into his like more personal relationships. So these are mostly just like assumptions, because there's so much questions that were asked of like, was Da Vinci like actually gay? And because he was never married and he never had any kids, he was kind of doing his own thing. So like a lot of people in modern day are like, oh yeah, he's definitely gay. And it's like, we don't know. He could have just like not want to focus on that, because he's been focusing since he was a child on doing his own thing. Like that may not be the thing. And the whole accusation, it could have been by someone who was very like jealous of him, or like was angry at something that they did. Like we don't know.
Yeah.
It's just up to pretty much theory at this point. So the closest thing that he did have to children were his pupils, his his own apprentices, which Soleil was one, and Francesco Malisi. Malisi was really close to him, like until the day that he died. So he was like a son to him.
Oh.
This also brings up the question for if he was gay, and pretty much we don't know.
Yeah.
that was pretty much the answer that I got. Like I read this huge article and all I got was like,
leave it to your own curiosity.
Pretty much. So they would be dismissed because they had no proof. There was no proof of like any of this was going on. Someone was probably just mad at them. And so they were released. But of course, like this took some time out of his life to just pretty much but he didn't let it consume him. He was just like, he kind of just went on and did his own thing. He was like, I don't fucking care. Like, I'm not going to get married because you expect me to.
Yeah. He's got a lot to focus on.
He literally just cared about what he was going to do with his life. And he was definitely more work driven than anything. And he only wanted to focus on his work. Because he was very passionate about his work. And honestly, like, family's going to get in the way of that.
Yeah.
A lot of time.
You can't really have, like, a huge career like that and a family.
Exactly. Like, it just wouldn't
never
be
ends
fair.
well.
No. No. Like, I don't think he wanted that responsibility.
Yeah. It's not for him.
Yeah. And I mean, like, being a man at the time, like, you definitely could, like, be unmarried and not have it. Like, you kind of get like weird looks and of course accused, but no one's gonna stop you to like not get married like a woman would be.
Oh yeah. If a woman's not married, then they're like, what's wrong with her?
Literally. Or honestly, arranged marriages were all the rage.
Classic.
So moving forward, in 1477, Da Vinci would finally leave Verrocchio's workshop to start focusing on his own career. For a year, Da Vinci his work was like quiet. Like you didn't hear anything for a year. Like we can't find like any work that he did. But the following year, in 1478, Da Vinci would start to reappear. So I think he was just kind of getting started and kind of just figuring out his life in this time.
Yeah.
So he would actually be commissioned to paint an altarpiece for the chapel of Saint Bernard. So further along, he would go on to create the Adoration of the Magi in 1481. So he was kind of just going along, doing his own thing for the next few years, because these altarpieces take years to make. Like, it's no easy feat. Like, it's very intense and it's very time consuming. So there are quite a bit of like gaps that you see in that I've started to like catch on. There was a lot of year gaps, but I think it's because he was focusing primarily on these pieces of work. And I think I have this later in my notes, but I'm just going to point it out now that Da Vinci has so much work unfinished. That was like a huge thing for Da Vinci, is that many of his like drafts that he made and pieces of art that he made were not finished.
He was like, nah, I'm gonna try something else. Start something new.
Literally, he would start working on something. He would be very passionate about it, and then something else would come up. He would get distracted and start focusing on this new thing. Like, that was his MO.
Have people like sold his unfinished work? Like, is it out there?
Oh, 100%.
Okay, that's cool.
100%. Like, there's so many drafts. Like, I think there was like a few big drafts that was sold for millions of dollars.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's awesome.
By 1482, Da Vinci would have a run-in with the Duke of Milan, Ludovico il Moro. He would send the Duke of Milan a letter explaining his skills of painting and engineering, to which Ludovico loved and requested that Da Vinci come to Milan. He was like, bruh, you're very talented.
Bruh.
I love your artwork. I love like your ideas. Like, you're very skilled in like different subjects and everything. Like,
well-rounded.
I need you to come to France. Like, come on, sir. And he was like, okay.
Come on, sir. Let's go.
But not France, but to Milan.
Yeah.
But I believe at this time Milan was taken by France.
Oh.
There's a lot going on.
I don't know
between
the history for that.
Dude, there's so much. I'm like, I don't even know, because I didn't really take any classes of French history.
Oh, yeah.
But I believe there was a lot of war between Italy and France, and Milan was like the centerpiece of it all.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think at this point it was taken by France at this point. Because he would stay in Milan until 1499. So while he was in Milan, he would create the painting of Virgin of the Rocks for the Confraternity of the Immaculate Conception. And then he also did the Last Supper for the monastery of Santa Maria del Grazie.
Never heard of that. It's not popular at all.
To be honest, for the longest time, I did not know who painted the Last Supper.
I probably, if you would have asked me before this podcast, I probably wouldn't have known. Last Supper. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Brad did the damn thing. So it is also during this time that it was assumed that Da Vinci found his mother and cared for her until her death in 1495. Now, this was pretty much found in his taxation documents during this time. So he pretty much in these taxation documents, he paid for funeral expenses and for like other things for a woman named Katerina. So it is assumed that during this time that he was in Milan, he found his mom and was like, hey, you're getting old. Let me take care of you. And she's like, thanks. And so
thanks, son.
Yeah. And so they're assuming that he did eventually find his mom. Who knows how?
Okay.
I mean, he didn't really keep any diaries.
That'd be really hard back then. You can't just like find him on Facebook, you know?
Right. Especially
my mom
especially with your mom being a potential like slave.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Who freaking knows?
You don't even know if she's alive.
Exactly. So this is just what was found in the taxation documents for him. So during his time in Milan, the Duke would keep Da Vinci very busy. He loved Da Vinci. He was like, bruh, you got so many good ideas. I would just want to pick your brain. I want you to help me out. Let me just throw you a bunch of stuff. And Da Vinci was like, I got you. I may not finish everything that you give me, but my ideas are going to blow your mind. And the Duke was like, that's all I can ask for, sir.
Thank you, sir.
So not only was he painting, but the Duke was also utilizing him to sculpt, design festivals, design weapons, buildings, and machinery. So his products made his imagination and ideas flow like this. All these things that the Duke asked for, Da Vinci was like, oh my God, I want to know more about this. I want to dive into this. So he was doing everything. Like he was doing more than just art. I feel like most people know that he's like an artist, but they don't know that he was so much more than that. Mm-hmm. So Da Vinci would start studying many subjects that he started to create blueprints of ideas. A lot of these you can see to this day. He started to create drafts of flying contraptions. That's a really big one that is just out of this world. He also drafted canals, basic ideas of machines that have been created hundreds of years after. So during this time, Da Vinci also started to further his interests and studies into anatomy. In his work, he would insert himself in the dissection of people and even the most gruesome of situations, and he sketched everything that he saw. So
okay,
yeah, so pretty much people that were probably tortured and killed, when they would do the autopsy of them, he was there, and he would pretty much sketch everything that they would like dissect.
Wow.
Because I mean,
that's how you learn.
That's how they started to figure out how everything was like functioning.
Someone has to do it.
Yeah, and this was a very new idea, too. Like, this was the early stages of this, so
wow,
he was in the middle of it all. So this included writing and sketching the deflections and reflections of body parts and how they relied on the nerves and joints. So he was figuring out, like, okay, if I tap this, what is the chain reaction of it going to be? So He was very into this, let me tell you. Like, he spent a lot of his older years focusing primarily on anatomy.
Wow.
He was really into anatomy.
That's so interesting.
He would even so much as write down the smallest of details of small organs, capillaries, and other parts of the body, like really small stuff. He would do detailed notes and drafts on it.
Wow.
He was very interested. So he was a man who very seldom finished his work, and there has been just proofs of unfinished work, but he always took very detailed, observed notes of everything. So even with like his unfinished work, it's very detailed and very just like he puts so much effort into them. But I think he just like something else came along and he was like, oh my God, I need to focus on this. So he just never finished them. And it's really sad because he would take notes on several topics ranging from astronomy, paleontology, and of course machinery. So he was taking notes about the stars. He was taking notes about fossils and stuff. Like he literally had no range. He just was so interested in everything.
He probably wished there was like more time in the day so he could do it all, you know?
Exactly, because there was so much for him that he wanted to know. He wanted to know everything about the universe and about everything that the world had to hold that we don't know, that we didn't know at the time. But I think just because there was so much to cover, it was hard for him to focus on one thing.
Yeah, find a niche.
Yeah. But he was really interested in machinery as well. So any machinery he would observe while working for Verrocchio and while in Milan, he would always take very detailed notes on them and pretty much like would write detailed notes about the elements of such machinery and how like they function. And then he started to get very imaginative of like, okay, there has to be like certain different types of machinery that I can create myself. And one of them was, of course, a flying machine. Like we have planes now, but what he created earlier, like in the 1400s, he created a blueprint of a flying machine. Mm-hmm. Granted, he never completed it to it actually.
Idea that counts.
I mean, yeah, like nobody looked into it to make this a possibility until the 1900s.
He needed like a whole team of people. Like
yeah.
Someone who would like execute his ideas.
And I think that was the issue too, because it is the Renaissance era.
Yeah.
And so his ideas already were very like out there.
Right.
And nobody wanted to believe in them in a sense of just like, how can this actually happen? And he would even so much as do a machine that was like he wrote blueprints pretty much of possibility of a tank.
Oh.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And I was like, what the hell? I was like, this guy was thinking of everything.
Dang.
So his ideas were very like the basic models of these fundamentals of just these creations now, but they were ahead of their time nonetheless. It was crazy. So he would stay in this work, working for the Duke until 1499, when the Duke would be overthrown and the Second Italian War would take place. So that started, and it was a hot mess. And Da Vinci wanted nothing to do with it. He was like, I don't want to stay in Milan because this is like the big area that they're fighting in, and I don't want to be a part of it. So he decided that it was best to leave Milan. He was
That's
like,
fair.
Laters. And so Da Vinci would then go to Venice, where he would become a military architect and engineer. So they wanted his help to make sure the city would be protected from any naval attack. If this sounds familiar, remember Plague Island?
Oh, yes.
That was a really big thing. They use those islands to help protect. So he was there being a military architect and engineer. So he would not stay there long, only a year, because in 1500, Da Vinci would return back to Florence and stay with the monks at the monastery of Santissima Annunziata.
Spicy.
So by 1502, Da Vinci would begin his work as a military architect and engineer for Cesare Borgia, the son of Pope Alexander the Sixth.
My God.
Yeah, he just kept running into people. And they're like, hey, I heard of your work. It's pretty impressive. You want to help me out? And he's like, okay.
He's a new hobby. I don't have enough of those.
Literally, because he still got to work with machinery.
Yeah.
And to have a complete focus on that. I think he was still doing anatomy work too at this time.
Nice.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
So they would travel all around Italy working. He would be working for Cesare, and during his travels would meet Niccolo Machiavelli, the author of The Prince. I've heard of that book vaguely.
The Prince.
Yeah, it's old.
I think I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, but he
Probably
was
about a prince.
So Da Vinci would even go on to design a bridge in Constantinople and spent 2 years painting the mural of the Battle of Angahari back in Florence. He was doing everything. He was just like, someone was like, hey, you want to help design a bridge? He's like, okay. Someone was like, oh, you want to paint a mural? He's like, okay. I don't know how he found time for this.
I know, for real.
It is even noted that during this time that he was doing all of this, he started to work on the Mona Lisa.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Does he ever sleep?
No. I'm assuming that he took some like herbal drugs or something. So by 1506, he would return to Milan and continue his workshop, but ultimately return back to Florence to sort out his father's estate when he passed.
Jeez.
Yeah, so he was hopping between Florence and Milan very often, especially with trying to figure out who was going to get what of like the property and like his father's fortune between his brothers. So that was probably a whole drama scene. But of course there's really not much like documented on that. It was just documentation of like where he showed up. Mm-hmm. So the following year he would be in Milan, where he would live in a home in Porta Orientale. So for the next few years, Da Vinci was quiet until in 1513, Da Vinci would leave Milan to Rome. So he had enough of Milan. He was like, I'm going to go find a new adventure. So for 3 years, he would work for the Pope, another random person to work for, working on projects that were requested in Belvedere. So Da Vinci would try to further explore his studies in anatomy. He was still really interested in it. He wanted to figure out how the body functions worked, but the Pope would limit him on what he was able to do because he loved dissecting and sketching everything that he saw, but the Pope was like, there's a limitation of of the people that you can use and how you're doing this.
Yeah.
So he was like, no, we're going to cut it back a little bit. And I don't think he was happy about that because he was really interested in it. But I think his obsession with it was interesting. So it would be in 1515 that France would take hold of Milan. And the one in charge was Francois I, and he would take interest in Da Vinci. He was like, you are an interesting man. Come here. And he's like, oh, shit, I have to leave Rome now. Okay, I guess I'm going back to Milan. So he would go as far as asking Da Vinci to make a lion mechanism for him. Yeah.
A lion mechanism?
Yeah, so I think he drew up the blueprints, but I don't think it went anywhere further than that. But Francois was very intrigued by that. So he would eventually give Da Vinci the title as the premier painter, engineer, and architect of the king.
Wow.
He was like, bruh, you got many talents. You're going to be my side hustle guy. Like, you're doing great.
Yeah.
So he loved Da Vinci so much that he provided him a large stipend for his work and even provided him a chateau in Amboise. It's somewhere in France. It's very bougie. It's very bougie. So Da Vinci would stay at this chateau in France and continued his work into his old age. So Da Vinci was said to suffer from a stroke, which left his right hand completely paralyzed.
Oh.
Luckily, he kept teaching and drawing because he was left-handed.
Of course.
So I don't know if he was like born left-handed, because depending on if he was Catholic or something, that was like, you can't be left-handed. Or he taught himself
He
how
probably
to.
taught himself. That would not be surprising.
Yeah.
He's already taught himself everything else.
Literally. So it would be on May 2nd, 1519, that Leonardo da Vinci would die in Clos-Luche, France, in his chateau. It was rumored that Francois was there and wept at the loss of his dear friend. But who knows if that actually happened. People love to add...
Interesting relationship there.
Yeah, literally. He loved Da Vinci. So Da Vinci would be buried in the chapel of St. Hubert in the castle of Amboise. I don't know if I'm saying that right. As I mentioned previously, that Da Vinci had no children, so where did all of his possessions and money go? So Da Vinci would leave his paintings, tools, books, and a lot of, like, a good chunk of his money to Francesco Milesi, because he was with him, like, till the very end.
Oh.
Yeah, so I bet he was really sad about the loss of him. But he also gave half of his vineyards to his apprentices Salai and a servant named Battista di Velusis.
Okay.
So I'm like, the servant got a freaking vineyard.
Yes.
That's impressive. You know that probably got passed down in the family, and that was like the biggest story to tell.
Yeah.
So, for being a Renaissance man, Da Vinci was a man ahead of his time. He was a man of the arts, I'm sure of religion for painting all of those murals, and a man of science. So, I really do think people only remember him of the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper, but this guy did so much more.
Just wasn't finished.
Literally. So imagine, though, if those sketches were actually completed and he actually went forward with making it a reality.
Right.
We would have been so much further in technology, I feel like.
Yeah.
But I mean, he really gave a good starting of just the possibility of things.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most appreciation for him, was that he really did set so many starting points for just progression in science and history and art. Mm-hmm. It's crazy because he really focused a lot with like his art and like pretty much adding these realistic and like dimension to his art pieces too. It's crazy. So,
wow, he's not just an artist, y'all.
That's Leonardo da Vinci.
The only thing I knew is that he's an artist and like I heard architect. Like I think I had to teach about him when we were doing the Renaissance period, but I didn't know that he was so interested in anatomy. That's crazy. I love that for him.
He was huge into that.
He needed more time.
He really did. Like, and I think after his stroke too, that really limited how much he could do.
Yeah.
But he did the damn thing. Yeah.
What a guy, man.
What a guy.
You can have multiple hobbies and still be a huge success, I guess.
Yeah.
There's the lesson.
Even if you have unfinished work.
Yeah. Oh, man. That's a good one.
Thank you. Where can you find us?
You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at History of the Podcast, or email us at historyofthepodcast@gmail.com. You can leave us a review. Let us know what you think of the show. And most of all, thank you so much for listening.
Appreciate it.
Yes. So stay tuned for next week.
It'll be great.
Yeah, it'll be a fun one. All right.
Bye.